With workforce housing, I'd like to call to order CDA. Could I get a roll call for CDA?
Yes, give me just 1 second. Wakely,
Present.
Cole,
Present.
Lore,
Present.
Sandoval,
Present.
Schaefer,
Present.
Nelson.
Here.
And is Oaks here? Not yet, but she might be joining later. Okay, and so that's CDA and there's quorum.
And I'd like to call to order the Workforce Housing Committee. Could you do the roll call, please, Daphne?
Yes. Hanairo,
I'm here.
Roden,
Here.
Demulero,
Here.
Pickle,
Here.
Adams, I think it will be absent. Wolf,
Here.
Larson,
Here.
Huang,
Here.
Bruce,
Here.
Nugent will also be absent.
Okay.
But that is also quorum for workforce housing.
All right, great.
Want to start with the
Sure. The next item is the approval of the minutes from our, I guess, respective committee meetings. So first, we'll look at the minutes for the Workforce Housing Committee meeting on January 27th. Are there any corrections to the minutes?
I had a small correction. I think on page 3, one of the last paragraphs says, I would be concerning. I think it's supposed to be, it would be concerning.
Right here?
Right
Yeah, I
there.
can fix that.
Thank you for that. And I had a correction, I think on this, on page 4. It was in reference to the library. Adams noted that the school district met. And Iro noted that the library shares some resources with Way Forward to help people get forms filled out. What actually happens is the library helps people with researching housing and food security assistance and filling out forms.
Okay.
They don't, they're basically helping people prepare forms that they can then submit to Way Forward and other social service agencies. All right, so with those corrections, are there any others? All right, I don't see any online. So with those corrections, the minutes of our January 27th, 2025 meeting are accepted. Moving on to the minutes of February 13th of 2025. I would note on page 6 that I didn't ask the city attorney to look into how it would affect the cooperation agreement if paragraph 4 relating to, in our ordinance, relating to the powers of a housing authority in CDA's ordinance was dropped. I said, we need to ask the city attorney. So that's the only change I saw. Does any other member have a correction to make? All right, then we will, with that change, the minutes of the February 13th, 2025 Workforce Housing Committee meeting are accepted as drafted. I'll turn it over to CDA.
Yeah, thanks. Moving over to CDA, going to the approval of minutes for our meeting from February 13th. Does anyone have any corrections or additions or questions? All right, if there's nothing, those minutes stand approved. Moving on to the agenda items. The first one is the discussion of potential components of and priorities for Affordable Housing Action Plan.
I can tee this up. So Alder Schaefer at our last joint meeting requested having a conversation about the different components that the Workforce Housing Committee had proposed we look into for an Affordable Housing Action Plan. And so that's what we're here now to do. So let's talk about what each of these could mean. And then I'd like to hear from the members what they think Middleton's priorities should be. And remember that at least 75% of the funds need to be from our TID extension if council approves it. At least 75% need to go to support affordable housing. The remaining, let's say 25% must be used to support housing in some other way, in, general housing. So for instance, if we think low interest down payment assistance would be a good idea, and I've heard some people suggest that, we could do that with the 75% that's earmarked for affordable housing, or we might be able to use some of the 25% that is available for, maybe people of a little higher income, but still lower than the 100% area median income. So let's go through what Daphne has on the screen. We've talked about this so many times. We've got buy, build, finance, refurbish, and educate. And if we think about housing itself, the first four are really where the bulk of the money, I think, would need to be spent. Education, I guess, requires staff, so that's something to think about too. But in terms of buying, we could acquire land in distressed buildings. Trying to build near transit routes is part of our comprehensive plan. It's good for climate change. It's good for reducing commute times. I was at a conference where they said the number one reason people leave their jobs is the commute time. So that's a housing issue too. Buying could also be if there is a property that is already affordable housing and it becomes available. Perhaps the city can step in and buy it to make sure it doesn't get converted to something else or, torn down. So we'd have to work out, what do we do if we own the building? How do we not become landlords? But that is another possibility. Building would be partnering with affordable housing developers to build all types of housing, including condominiums, because that was a recommendation from the previous time the Workforce Housing Committee put together recommendations. And again, trying to locate housing near transit corridors to the extent possible. Finance, this is similar to building. We could invest in refurbishment and new housing. I know Monona has loans, low interest loans based on the property value, not the income of the applicant, to fix up and install like energy efficiency related things like insulation and new appliances. So that might be something we could do. We could also partner with banks to do that. That's what Monona did at first. Then for some reason they stopped, and now they want to go back to having a bank or a credit union manage that. And then this last item on there, allowing the use of land value for down payment. Sheboygan Falls has a development going in. I've talked about this one before, and they're trying to keep all the mortgages at $275,000 or less. And they allow the purchasers to use the value of the property itself, the land. They use that for their down payment. So that's a program we can look at. I think I just drove by that development too, because I saw a bunch of I was up in Sheboygan over the weekend, saw a bunch of houses and wish I could have stopped.
Oh,
but
very cool.
yeah. And then refurbish is preserving naturally occurring affordable housing. These could be grants. It could also be loans. We could decide on the income level, and so this could be similar to what Monona does. And one of the things that has benefited me as a homeowner is the solar group buy that the county does. That's how I got my solar. It dropped the price of the panels by 6%, and was really easy because I didn't have to call 6 different companies and have them come out, give me an estimate. The county, goes to bid, picks 1 or 2 companies every year, and then as a homeowner that you're going to get the best deal and it's a reliable company. So it really helped a lot. And I've been urging the county to do a similar group buy for things like air source heat pumps or electric cars even. That wouldn't apply here, but that's what I mean by group buys. And then investing in programs for retrofitting rental units. That is something that's been, the city's been supporting the Energy Navigator project. And it's been successful. I think this is our 4th year of supporting it. So that's an option too. And then I think we'll stop with those because the educate portion is more of like a something that we are more comfortable doing already. It's not a new thing for us. So I think we'll just focus on the first 4 and find out from the members what they think about these 4 options and where it, as we develop an action plan, and later this evening we'll organize a subcommittee to do that. As the subcommittee works on developing the components, where would your priorities be? What would you like to see emphasized? And maybe we'll start in the room. Who would like to go first?
Hi. I'll
Go ahead,
first.
Kelly.
I'm sort of new to this, so I apologize if I'm sort of rehashing things you've already talked about, but what stands out to me here is that it's a nice opportunity to, I mentioned like buying distressed buildings. That seems like a really nice opportunity to both make the city look nicer and clear out some of those properties that are run down and stuff, and then use that for affordable housing. It's kind of win-win there. I would say it seems like less of a priority to like focus on energy efficiency or fixing up housing, because it seems like there really is an intense need for new places to live in Middleton, not just like helping out people who already have a home. So that's kind of where I see the priorities.
Thanks, Kelly.
I'd like the city to kind of focus on partnering with the county and the state of Wisconsin in terms of their programs that they're already working on. In other words, can we help some of the projects get approved here in Middleton, either through financing opportunities or through waivers of fees or whatever we can do to help make the economics of these projects work better. Can they get additional tax credits from the state because we have we're also contributing. I know that in the past the state of Wisconsin's given extra points and extra consideration for projects that also have local financial support. So I think if we partner with other entities, I think we'll get a lot more bang for our buck.
Thank you, Randy.
Super good point. I have a question, if someone knows in the room, about we talk about using land value for down payment. If we bought land, does that help? If we were going to let someone build on our land, like was it the land trust? Is that what I'm thinking of? That doesn't help a homeowner building on our land with any down payment, does it?
No, but it's a different, I mean, a land
But
trust.
then you're also not
is-
buying the land as the home buyer.
A land trust is something the Workforce Housing Committee heard about and talked about. Daphne, did you want to weigh in?
Oh, yeah, I can share a little bit. So the concept that Alder Nelson was talking about is, I think it's formally known as land banking, where the city will purchase, usually it's like we'll purchase a couple different parcels and, combine them so it is more usable for a developer, or, we'll purchase something and then hold it, and then, essentially give it to a developer to develop so that the developer doesn't have to, hold the land, pay taxes on the land. Since the city owns it, we don't have to pay taxes on it. And so there is some kind of cost savings in that sense. Yeah, and then the land trust is, you know, another concept where the city could just keep the land, you know, we own the land, and then someone would build a development or a house on it. And then the land trust model is that, you know, that the house, you know, the person can buy the house, and then, you know, when they sell the house, you know, they can sell the property, but the city essentially would still own the land, and that essentially keeps all the costs lower than a market rate property.
So the home gets their equity that they put in, but they
Mhm.
don't, you can't just buy the house and then 2 years later sell it for market rate. Yeah.
Mhm.
So-
But I think if I remember correctly from the presentation, that there is some appreciation that the home buyer can have. I mean,
Right.
they just limit it so that it still works going
Right.
forward. The program still works
Yeah.
going forward.
Yep.
And what kind of control do we have if we're gonna work with a bank, and we say, we really want these loans to be very low interest to really help our residents? What kind of control do we have with that?
I would say we have complete control because we can fund it. You know, we can specify what our interest rate we want, because we'll make up whatever the bank needs. Does that make sense? So if the going
Mhm.
rate is 6%, but we want people to have 2%, that's what we would be using some of our money for.
Okay, and so then part of that would be paying the bank, part of that 2% is paying the bank to keep that managed on our behalf.
To entice them to participate in this.
Yeah.
Like if we did it on our own, we could offer whatever.
But we would need a staff.
Well, we're going to need staff.
Yeah.
I predict we will need housing staff no matter what.
Mm.
Because it can't be something that the current planning staff do. And if we added someone to the planning department, that person really should be focusing on housing issues.
Yeah.
Not, it's very difficult to get somebody who can do two things equally well.
Right.
And want to stay in that position. Daphne, would you go to the next page just to show something? I want to follow up on something that Randy said. Okay, so this document was put into, or this page was put into the packet after it originally went out. So you see the approach, the buy, build for at the top, refurbish, educate, finance. And while we're doing these things, and these were the different ideas that we incorporated based on our own thinking or previous work that the city had done, or the regional housing partnership. I'm sorry, it's strategy that, looking at the word partner, the regional housing strategy that the county put together. So partnering with existing organizations makes a lot of sense to us because they know what they're doing, and, you know, the more partners involved, I think the better the outcome will be. The reason we have, to address Kelly's comment, the reason we have incorporate 100% renewable energy goals into all the projects that we would fund is simply because we have a policy of trying to get to 100% renewable energy. So if there's going to be any building going on, it would be inconsistent if we didn't at least try to incorporate
I
energy
think
efficiency.
my thought was whether if some of the funds would go to existing homes to upgrade energy efficiency.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah.
that
The,
makes sense.
the Energy Navigator program that we fund is intended to do two things: improve energy efficiency, you know, to get us closer to this 100% renewable energy goal, but also to make utility costs go down for the tenants, which is tricky to do if you can't make the landlord pass those savings on to the tenants. But that's what we're hoping to do, is make living in Middleton more affordable for them by reducing their bills. And where one of the things, oh yeah, the very last line on the top, focus on affordable living, not just affordable housing. And that goes back again to things like building along a transit corridor, thereby making it possible for somebody to take many, if not all their trips by bus. And if people can move here and not rely on a car, not have to have a car that's, you know, between $9,000 and $13,000 a year, that they will not have to pay for parking and gas and insurance and repairs. So affordable living should be our real focus.
Lisa,
Yes, Ben.
I think it's helpful to be crystal clear on what outcomes, by which outcomes we're gonna measure success. Right? And is it, yeah, and certainly sounds like one is net new affordable units, right? But perhaps that's not the only one you kind of want to hear, right? If the second one is, I don't know how to phrase it, but people being able to stay in their units, in their affordable units. That's number two, right? Or, you know, only displacement, what have you. You know, then again, it's tough for me to answer what the priorities are until we've done the work and of the analysis, say where can we spend the money that's going to drive those two numbers the most. I think we've got to do that work first before I can weigh in what the priorities might be. Priorities. We can have some hypotheses where we can focus first. Yeah, but it's just tough to say the priorities.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ben. Other thoughts from folks? Alder Schaefer.
Yeah, if we go back to the previous page, of those 5 things, I guess, my concern is expressed by others earlier is that I don't think we have a whole bunch of places in this town that are affordable, waiting to be refurbished or things. And so the first 3 actually hit me much stronger. There's still lots of questions, such as you buy property, who maintains the property, as we're talking about, you know, do you sell it off or who manages it, etc. I actually like B and C as would be my preferred choices given the first shot at this. That the idea of working with other partners such as Dane County and banks and things to create a way that doesn't just spend money, but uses the money in such a way that it can refurbish it, restore it over time, such as loans, low interest loans and things like that. So to me, the real issue is I think we need to find places and we need to build more of these things because I don't think there's enough to really look at the D. Obviously, E would educate. I think that's an information thing. The city does that already pretty well. There should be good facilities on their website or something ultimately to store and maintain some of that information. So I think the education can happen, but that's what I don't see expending significant funds in that direction. But on first look, that would be my priority, A, B, and C, with B and C taking priority over the 3.
John, I just want to add, I think you're right with your focus on A, B, and C, but I think we have to be mindful that the lowest cost housing units that are available to anyone are the ones that are already out there.
Yeah.
Some are getting older, particularly I think about some of the older rental apartment buildings in town
Sure.
that we want to maintain and keep as good housing stock. So I'd want to make sure that we didn't forget about that part of it.
Yeah, and I guess didn't mean to be exclusive, but you were talking about what are priorities? What would you prioritize over others? I think the education is the only one that I wouldn't prioritize, but certainly keeping refurbishing as part of it. But whether you buy the land and refurbish or whether you loan money to somebody else to refurbish it, I think those are still good ideas. But I think it's kind of a throwing a dart at a dartboard when we're trying to look for properties that are already here that need this kind of work, and it becomes a scatter shot. And so that concerns me a little bit. Done.
That, and I think we're seeing the property owners, particularly like of the rental units that you're referring to about refurbishing those, are just making plans to redevelop. And so that displaces people. So I wonder if there's some way in which we can there's some program created amongst all these things that helps with that displacement. So folks don't have to leave Middleton to find the affordable housing when their affordable housing has been replaced. Because some of the aging housing stock has reached its lived, I forget the term for that. But for me, I think with a mind to that, because I know that discussion about condominiums and getting ways to have new home ownership in some way has been a priority or a focus or a desire in this community. But condominiums can be incredibly challenging for like developers don't want to finance them because building up your reserve and having enough coverage and they just are a real big challenge to maintain, and insurance rates are like skyrocketing on those. So if there's some mechanism that we can, because I just read a report from the Brookings Institute about townhomes being a real like path forward for starter home ownership. And so, right, they function similarly then to condominiums. You also then get the advantage of your density and can build along transit corridors and maximize. So I think that for me, that would be something of a priority to look forward or look towards. Because if we've got the mechanism, like, because it's not a viable option out in the free market to build condominiums and sustain them, we might be able to be that stopgap.
Yep, and could you share the Brookings report?
Yeah, I'll have to dig
with-
that out, yeah.
That would be great.
I think it was Brookings. Might have been Urban Institute.
And to the comment about condominiums and barriers to condominium development, I think we, or the Workforce Housing Committee previously endorsed a letter. I don't know where that one went, Lisa, but about the Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac financing rules, where you have to have 85% of the units committed from like other people other than the developer, and that was kind of the main barrier to it. The background on that is that those rules were put in place after I think the 2008 housing crash, where we wanted to prevent banks from kind of speculatively owning undeveloped condos. But you know, kind of the outcome of that is that financing for condos has effectively disappeared. And to the point, like maybe that is a place where some of this money can be used to help close that gap.
Yeah. I see.
Yeah, I want to call on Kari.
Hi, I'll try to remember to lower my hand a second. There, okay. This is so interesting and it's so nice this is the first time I've been able to be in one of these joint meetings and hear the expertise and perspective of the Workforce Housing Committee. It's just really cool, I want to say. But in terms of the priorities, I appreciated Alder Schaefer's points about there's only so many properties around that you can buy and the price points are sort of, you know, for existing properties getting to be maybe beyond what would make sense for us. But I do think that the point of refurbishment, there's a certain attractiveness, I think, to some of the older properties. I'm thinking of the ones that line Lakeview as you head down toward Allen Boulevard for young families, because some of these older properties offer bedrooms and amounts of square footage that you just are not getting in the new builds. And I think working with those properties that still do have some life left would be a boon for families that might then want to stay in Middleton going forward. And to that point also about, we have a new ADU ordinance, and ADUs are not going to solve the problem of needing 6,000 housing units, but they will potentially offer the opportunity for some people to be able to enter neighborhoods that they otherwise might not be able to, because you're never going to have a 5-story building there. And I worry about, I live on Hubbard Avenue, and I worry about young families just getting priced out of being able to be in a walkable neighborhood in Middleton. And ADUs, like I lived in Vancouver, BC, and everybody had their basement redone and they called them mortgage helpers. Putting those in, I think, helps fill a missing middle for some people. And I would want to think about some kind of cost sharing with homeowners that might make better use of some of the single family properties that are in walkable neighborhoods.
Thank you. And Quinn's
Yeah,
hand
Quinn,
is
go
raised.
ahead.
Thank you. I gotta say, I wasn't thinking of this before, but I like a lot of the ideas that Carrie was talking about. But I want to echo kind of the thoughts on the buy, build, finance. You know, all 5 are important components. But I really like the idea of us being able to partner with development firms or banks, a lot like the city of Madison CDA does. I read like maybe 6 articles this week from the Wisconsin State Journal talking about all the successful kind of affordable housing projects that the city of Madison has going on. I know that they have, much different resources when it comes to this, but I think, that's something to look to and get inspiration from. I also wanted to throw in some ideas that aren't exactly mentioned here. Um, Looking at zoning, I think this kind of goes along with Kari's point with the ADUs. Just, how is zoning in the city maybe preventing us from being able to develop the way we want to? Um, I'm sure that's been discussed in the planning commission and whatnot, but just knowing that zoning is a tool that we can use. And I'm also curious about kind of pushing development to open areas on the edges of Middleton, and maybe even, expanding city of Middleton to be able to develop um, and bring in more affordable housing that way. And one last thing I wanted to just include, because I don't know if we've said it explicitly, but thinking about renters here too, and making sure that there's enough affordable housing for renters, not just people looking to buy homes.
So thank you for those comments, Quinn. I will let Daphne address the zoning question that you raised. And I did want to mention that, our resolution that we passed on to the council to consider at our last meeting, we referenced the Dane County Regional Housing Strategy, and there are 5 5 goals of that strategy. And one is increase the number of housing units attainable to low and moderate income households. And another is to increase the overall number of housing units. So, and they definitely are interested in seeing municipalities increase rental housing, not just owner occupied. So that's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up. Alan, your hand is raised. Oh, wait, let me go to Daphne first so she can talk about.
Yeah, Daphne or I can speak to the zoning changes that we've had. Up to you, Daphne. Go for it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll just say, overall, we did recently redo our zoning ordinance last year, and so a lot of that has, I think, addressed a lot of our single family housing, because we've decreased the minimum lot sizes for single family homes. So if you think about a lot of the new development it's called Red Tail Ridge, but it's like north of along Pheasant Branch Road. Those have, really, really tiny lots. And so they can put, more single family homes closer together. They do have some of those townhomes that Jen was talking about earlier as well. And so those are all, within our current zoning. And then right now we are working on our subdivision ordinance, which will allow existing single family homes in, some of our larger lot neighborhoods to, split their lots either in half or, into smaller sizes, and then putting, another home on that lot. So those are certain things that are in our current zoning ordinance that I think will help facilitate a lot of that. It is, just our first year. I think we just hit our 1-year mark, so we haven't seen too many of those, but we are getting a lot more requests for ADUs and questions about those. So that is something that is being explored by a lot of residents. And yeah, our new ADU ordinance, it is pretty lenient, I think, in how we've developed it. And so we're really hoping to see a lot more ADUs come up in Middleton.
Great.
And I would add that the Workforce Housing Committee endorsed several changes about allowing for increased heights if there were certain percentages of affordable units. So we could go for taller buildings if they were designating some of those units as affordable. And then we also endorsed more splits or perhaps creating a duplex in a single family unit zoned area in what's called by right. So without review, without a committee or hearing, a property owner or developer would be able to increase the density of a lot without the potential for that being denied or reviewed by the city. And that's kind of consistent with changes that have happened in other municipalities in Dane County. I think in the last 2 years, most municipalities in Dane County have embraced that increased density, increased height if you have affordable units, to make development more attractive and easier for developers. The developers that you're talking about with the city of Middleton working with, or city of Madison that work with the city of Madison CDA, those developers shared with us that Middleton does a really good job with its permitting processes, that a lot of those barriers aren't there to begin with, and that they've gotten better with some of those new zoning laws. So as much as we can remove ambiguity about will the city approve this, is this something that's allowed, the more clearly we state that, yes, you can build this, that moves things along more quickly for those developers. For Quinn, your comment about unused land or what we'd call greenfield development, that's the cheapest way for single family homes to be built, and market rates often take care of that portion of it. So the focus we think for our group would be not for those greenfield developments where the market rates can often create affordable units, but in the higher density transit corridor, more urban parts of the city, that's where we can invest those additional monies to increase density and housing units there.
Thanks, Alan. And I wanted to add two things. One, Daphne won't tell us this, but she and the other planning staff won an award for our zoning code rewrite from the, is it the American Planning Association, Wisconsin chapter? So kudos to them. And the, Alan mentioned the height bonus, and Randy's on the Plan Commission along with me. So he could talk about this too, but we intentionally limited the height bonus to net zero design and affordable housing. And that is something that, you know, as Daphne mentioned, our zoning code is only a year old. We have our first development that's actually being planned under that new zoning code, and they don't have any tall buildings. But I would like to see, if it's appropriate for the city staff to encourage developers who inquire about the availability of land and start talking about their projects to, you know, we've talked about this with the new developments when they're talking to their prospective buyers about options for the home. To help us get to our renewable energy goal, they could say, oh, you know, the premier, like the top tier of of appliances are all electric. And, you know, if you want like the best package, the most exclusive package is going to have solar or geothermal, you know, make that attractive. I would love to see the staff when they're working with potential developments really emphasize, well, you know, you could do this if you could go higher if you put some affordable housing units. Here's how many you would need, you know, something like that. I think that has some potential as well. So. Okay, well, we've discussed quite a bit. I appreciate, does anyone else who hasn't already spoken want to chime in? If not, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is discussion and potential action to create work groups or subcommittees. And I'll kick off this discussion by, as you're all thinking about which subcommittee, what topic would interest you. I did speak with Matt Fleming, our city attorney, and he said we could have a motion to form the subcommittees if we want to make it, you know, somewhat formal. He said notice would be required for meetings of any subcommittees that have more than 2 members of CDA, or I'm sorry, that has 2 or more members of CDA or 3 or more members of workforce housing, just given the sizes of our committees. I think a subcommittee working on the strategy or the components, you know, researching these and coming up with recommendations for what can work in Middleton. I think that topic would be of greatest interest to the public, and perhaps to our members as well. So it makes sense to me that that might be a larger subcommittee. And we should plan to notice meetings of that, subcommittee. And then possibly the others, I know we talked about some education, public information materials. That strikes me as something that could be kept smaller and more informal, kind of thing that you could do over tea or coffee at breaks or something like that, or in a library study room, and not necessarily have to notice those meetings. And then I just want to mention that 3 of us are alders, and while I hope I will continue on workforce housing, it's up to the mayor to appoint us. So it's possible in April, mid-April, we'll be appointed to different committees, commissions, or boards. So I kind of would like to start by just having the non-elected members identify what they might want to do. And before I go any further, I just want to emphasize, if you cannot serve on a subcommittee, that is totally fine. So please don't feel like you have to, because I get it. We all have lives. But I want to start with the non-elected folks, and perhaps the 3 of us can hash it out later as to which subcommittee we will serve on. Let's start with Jen Cole.
I think because my interest is with how do we get lower and medium income folks into home ownership, building probably would be my interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last time you said building.
Yeah, sorry, what are you?
Last time we talked about, and it is a group-driven activity. So I'm just going to remind everyone what we talked about last time. I don't think we made a decision one way or the other, but we did talk about the possibility of having a different subcommittee for each of these things. And then I said, I worried that would make people too invested in, well, we did all the work on finance and that's what we like. And another subcommittee would be like, but we're ready to build, or we have ideas for building. So we talked about possibly having one subcommittee that is going to come up with the strategy that would have, 25% build, 40%, nail that down.
Yeah, I guess we would need to define the subcommittees.
Yeah.
First, potentially.
Okay.
Lisa, are the
Great.
subcommittees that you're talking about the ones that are the action items that were listed in the work plan? I was a little unsure of that.
Let's go to the work plan. And again, this is all like super, yeah, thanks, Stephanie, because I.
Yes, excellent.
So there could be one on strategy. Funding is one that, there are pots of money out there that we need to supplement we'll have a lot of money in the TID extension, but we want this to be an ongoing thing and not dependent on future TID closures and extensions. So funding could be another one. Cultivating partners, that is one I actually would like to rope the mayor in on, because I think that's right up her alley. Working, again, I mentioned Sheboygan Falls all the time. It was for employers in the area in Sheboygan County, not in Sheboygan Falls, but they are located in Sheboygan County, and they were paying for hotel rooms for their new workers because there was no place for them to live. And they got the idea of partnering with the county to fund this development that's going in. And they all chipped in a couple $1 million to do it. So partners could be everything from like Habitat for Humanity or Way Forward, who has a lot of clients who are able to stay in Middleton because of the food pantry and clothing and housing assistance they have, all the way from that up to our biggest employers to ask, how can they help? And then the education piece.
So I think with these subcommittees, strategy would be my preferred.
Thank you. Thank you.
Though there's going to be crossover.
There will
ultimately.
be. Yeah. Well, I could see a strategy subcommittee being like, hey, funding subcommittee, we need you to look at this. You know,
Mhm.
so we can focus just on strategy, and same thing with partners, you know? Okay. Thank you, whoever brought that, Randy, thank you for bringing
Thanks.
that up.
That's helpful.
Anybody want to join Jen on the strategy committee? Ben? Thank you. Alan, where's my vice chair? Alan, what would you be most interested in?
I've already started some work with Daphne on education materials and publications we would do. So that's probably where I might help the most. I am less familiar with actual the finances of structuring these kinds of deals, so wouldn't be much help there, but would be more helpful in the teaching, educating, and sharing.
Great, thank you.
I was gonna say, that's also my area where I think I can be the most help. That's my
Good.
day job, so. Education, communication, maybe potentially partners, would be of interest as well.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have 2 for strategy, 2 for education. And, you know, it's entirely possible that the funding, but the idea of a funding subcommittee really should be folded into the strategy. I do think partners should stand alone, because I see that as, I see that as a great assignment for the mayor. With help from maybe the council president, I don't know, but you know, somebody who's
Agree.
got connections.
If, no, if, I would be interested in the funding area. Don't know how successful I will be as an addition, but I'm interested in it.
Okay.
And, if that means that it's part of strategy, that's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Randy.
I might be interested in strategy, sort of pending decisions about when and how often the committee would meet.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. And if anybody else, after this meeting has an idea, please let, oh, I see Quinn and
Yeah.
Amy.
Go ahead, Quinn.
Yeah, I just want to say I would be interested in funding or strategy. I don't know if that makes it confusing, but if there's a need to kind of split funding off from strategy or you need more on one or the other, I'm happy to go with either. But I think I would agree that they do seem fairly intertwined.
Thanks, Quinn. Amy?
Unmute myself. I'm happy to help in any capacity on any of the different lines of effort as best needed. But like Alan, I'm less familiar with the funding mechanics. I think I'd be best on the education subcommittee, but I'm equally happy to help someone else being in the lead of the partners sub effort.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Assign me somewhere, let me know.
Thank you. All right, and then Alder Schaefer and Alder Nelson and I will hold off and join one of these subcommittees perhaps if we get reappointed, and if we don't, we will lobby our colleagues who do get appointed to join one of them. Okay, so it's March 11th. We'll know our appointments on April 15th. So perhaps we could plan to kick all this off in early May. Does that sound? And in the meantime, Daphne and I can share some of the materials that we've gathered. Jen, if you would share that Brookings report or whatever it was.
I've met several reports that I can
You've
dig
got
out
several.
of.
Okay, yeah, we can, Daphne, do you think it would be possible to start a page with all the, like a web page, or I don't know if it's kosher with the open meetings to have like a Google Doc with links, but some sort of page that has all of these, so people don't just have a ton of different files on their computers or phones.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts on this, number 2?
I wanted to express my interest in
Oh, thanks, Jeremy.
funding, identifying funding, or whether or not that be folded into strategy. I think I would also be most competent and comfortable in education, but it sounds like we have plenty of people in that, and I am particularly interested in trying to identify funding.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
I just mentioned, obviously, a few members not present, are we gonna be able to reach out to them for?
Oh,
their-
yes.
Their
Sure.
volunteers?
I will take that. Do you have any not here from
We had-
CDA?
I think we got everybody, didn't we, with Kari here?
CDA is
Yeah.
here.
I'll reach out to Daphne. Who's missing?
It was
Sam?
Sam and John.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll together reach out to them. Thank you for reminding me.
Oh, I know Sam can do financing.
Are you telling him?
Voluntelling.
I'll mention, yeah, Sam $. Okay.
Oh, there's crossover with partners too, because they could potentially be
Right.
sharing in that funding.
Well, and the
dynamic.
idea is that it wouldn't be like we would all go off and not talk amongst ourselves at joint
Yeah.
meetings. We'll have those opportunities to share. But thank you for that reminder that, it'll be important to flag the things that when we find these areas of overlap, to flag those and be like, let's make sure we ask, the funding folks to look into that.
Partners wanna know what they're partnering on.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yep. And that means the education folks have to put together something to make it seem like, something they'll want to do. All right, this will be good. I always set a goal for myself for the year when I'm, in my council work. Last year, it was the stormwater utility, making sure the referendum on that passed, and so that worked. And this year, and probably next year, it's housing. So this will be my area of focus, assuming the mayor reappoints me. Well, actually, even if she doesn't reappoint me, it's gonna be my area of focus. So, all right, thank you. Let's move on and discuss. I know CDA has some things to discuss, but I didn't want to go another month without discussing the Workforce Housing Committee's draft work plan. So this goes back to when I was chair of sustainability, or Nelson might remember. My work in my career always involved work plans. We always had work plan because we had to know there was a, year-to-year grant funding, cooperative agreement funding. We had to know what we were going to be doing because we had to tell our funders what we were going to be doing. And one of the, that's just been an organizing principle for me forever. And serving on council it was a challenge at first because so many of the things that we do, it's just what's coming up this month, or what's on the agenda next time. I literally don't know until I see the agenda, what we're going to be doing. And I asked Bill Burns, I chair of finance and personnel, and I asked Bill Burns after my first year, I was like, do you have like a year planned ahead of what we need to discuss? And that's taped up on my wall at home. So the sustainability committee had a million projects going on, and it was my suggestion that we organize that into a work plan and recruit members, because that's a very active committee. I mean, what we're doing, dividing into subcommittees now, that is just how the sustainability committee has always worked, because there are always different projects. So this just lays out what our mission is according to the ordinance, and then the things that we talked about working on this year. The affordable housing recommendations are going to council. We'll, I hope, be able to update that. Work with CDA to develop recommendations for a merger and roles and responsibilities for CDA. That is sort of in the future after we, tackle the most important thing, which is the Affordable Housing Action Plan, which is the very next thing. And then some things that I think can stay as long as workforce housing is going to exist for the next year. We had talked about the rent abatement and rental retaliation ordinances. That was another recommendation that we had, that we, I think we're piggybacking on what Madison did. Just recently, I became aware of ordinances, including one in Wisconsin, but Berkeley and I think San Francisco have passed them, that prohibit landlords from using algorithms to come up with rental pricing and their vacancy rates. And it didn't pass in, I can't remember if it was, I don't think it was Waukesha. Anyway, wherever it was in Wisconsin, it just didn't pass. But I don't think there's anything in statute preventing us from doing that. So that might be something else that we want to look at. And then improving public communication about housing, that's something that this education subcommittee can work on. And so this would be the document that, and maybe not every meeting, but we'd add the volunteer names, the subcommittees, and just keep focused on what our work plan is for the year. Doesn't mean that if something comes up, we can't take it on, but if we know what we right now are setting ourselves up to be doing over the course of the year, it'll make it easier to stick with that and resist the temptation to get sidetracked by other things. So that's why we have this, and I'm glad the CDA wanted to take a look at it. But we've done a lot. We've signed up to do a lot. And so I would suggest that the Workforce Housing Committee, unless somebody's got an urgent addition they want to make to, fill in the other topic. All right, not seeing any online. We're all good. Okay. Then that means the Workforce Housing Committee has reached the end of our agenda. I will just quickly recap action items. Alder Nelson and I will put together, with Daphne's help, a list of the subcommittees and who is willing to serve on these. Daphne and I will reach out to Sam and John. Jen is going to share her article or paper, and I too, and anybody who's got anything they would like to share, please pass it on, or you can wait, if you're on Workforce Housing, wait to see what Daphne and I put together in terms of a list of reading and resources, and then you can add to that. All right, thank you all very much. The Workforce Housing Committee is adjourned.
Thank you. Thanks for.
you.
On to agenda item number 4 for CDA. Request for event sponsorship, $2,500 for Downtown Middleton Business Association 2025. Do I need a presentation?
Oh, are you going to share something, Alder Nelson? On the screen or?
No, I just want to know whose item this is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I believe it's Allie, so.
Allie, come on up.
If you want to stand up, this is my first scene. Yes, usually we're not in this big room. This room was first time. Okay. Yeah, and then share. Yeah, you can go ahead and present.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Allison Klingbeil, and I'm just here on behalf of Downtown Middleton Business Association. And we are looking for a $2,500 grant or sponsorship for to help our organization and what our 3 strategic pillars are this year. So one is community events, the other one is marketing initiatives, and then the last one is business advocacy. So right now, the way that we work is that we host different community events. So we've done Sip and Stroll in the spring, and then the Sip and Stroll as well in the fall, and that one was beer and cider last time. The most recent, or the one that's going to happen this spring, is wine, a wine walk. And then so we use those funds to help support Downtown Middleton Business Association, to promote Downtown Middleton as a destination for people to come, so that we can give back to our community in that way and give members what they're looking for, the people in the city, and then also just locals, and then as well support all the Downtown Middleton businesses. And just there's so many small independent businesses down here, and we just want to lift them up the best we can. So within the last year, we hired our marketing event specialist. And she has been doing a phenomenal job by just working with promoting us on social media, but then also helping send out different press releases for the different events that we're hosting, as well as coordinating different events in addition to the sip and strolls, which are our primary source of fundraising. But she also will pull together like the shop and stroll during the summer to support like the local businesses, as well as like spooky stroll, the Halloween stroll for all the kids and stuff in town as well.
Were those events, the sip and stroll and similar events, were those successful in your view?
Yeah, they've been successful every year. And they generate they've always been profitable, and we've always been able to like I think how to say this. They've worked well with our budget in the past. This year, we are really trying to grow a lot more. An additional event that we'd like to add is during around the holiday season. We were thinking around Small Business Saturday, and that one we're looking to have it be smaller this year, and our goal is to grow it into a larger holiday market in the future, but to start off smaller. So when we're just thinking about like scaling the Downtown Middleton Business Association and how much support that we can offer like the downtown Middleton businesses, we're just looking to gain more sponsorships this year.
How much did we do for sponsorship last year? Are we privy to those numbers?
I don't believe you did last year. I think it was 2,000 the year before. I don't think anyone seeked a sponsorship last year.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the numbers.
Okay, I'm
myself.
sorry.
Sorry.
So I'm gonna ask more numbers questions about like other things we're going to be having requested of our budget. I know that the mustard days has always come to us. We've got another item for Art Walk, and I'm just wondering if this is an increased request where we are. My apologies for not having that information.
My apologies as well. I don't have it.
At our last meeting, or maybe the one before that too, we talked about Pride being a city event. Does that affect?
Correct.
So there's a committee meeting this evening. And so I think there's the potential that would be seeking sponsorship of the CDA again. To cover certain costs that we may not be able to fundraise towards. So what is our line item our total line item, and what is available for sponsorships? Would be my question.
Yeah, my bad for not
Oh, no.
getting this beforehand.
Kari has her hand raised.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that. It went up and down. Yeah, I mean, Alder Nelson, correct, like in years previously, and also my apologies, because I should have realized we usually have all of that information in the meeting packet when it comes to us. And I knew that, and I looked through it, and I didn't even think to ask for it ahead of time. And so I guess I'm just putting out for discussion whether we should not say a no or a yes, but get more information to make the best decision for the community. But I don't want to put groups off
Yeah,
unnecessarily.
Can you see the screen, Kari?
Yeah, kind of. Oh, there it is.
Yes.
Oh,
It looks like there's a $7,500 line item for event sponsorship. from the city.
okay, thank you.
And so far tonight, we have 4,500.
And we've
being-
not allocated anything out of that pot.
So as of this year, I don't think anything has been
Okay.
allocated yet.
I don't
Okay.
all that we voted on.
3,000. And if Pride requests some I don't know if we've had a request from Mustard Days. It's usually being requested, but I'm wondering why that's not like wrapped into the DMBA.
Mustard days.
Yeah.
That's their standalone event that they've done every year. That's never been a part of, I mean, we definitely like support Mustard Museum and like they're a
Sure.
member of the Downtown Middleton Business Association.
Yeah.
But I don't think they've ever requested it via DMBA previously.
Yeah.
Just because and it's also
I think that's right. They never have.
I also think it's to help with, I don't know, but they're like the museum portion of it versus the store. I think it's separate, and I talk more with like Patty, who owns the store, than Barry, who runs the museum.
And the museum is who puts on the Mustard Days?
I'm pretty sure, but
Yeah.
I can say confidently.
Go ahead,
And that's a
Kari. Do you have
nonprofit.
more info for me?
Oh, I'm pretty sure that that is the case because I've heard Barry talk before. They have I think they've established a 501c3, I think.
Yeah, I think
Um,
Mustard
yeah.
Days supports the museum.
Yeah.
I have a question about, I'm seeing at least a partial list of what the funds would be used for. And you know, digital marketing and content creation seem like similar things that would also fall under staffing costs.
So the expanded digital marketing reach would be more of the budget to like for our marketing, like to reach out, where the content creation would be more for, so that would be more like paid
Like
media.
ad buys.
And then the content creation would be more of us generating the content to promote downtown Middleton as like a destination and increase just like the events, but that one's like more organic, like weekly posts versus like strategic media placement and dollars spent for the ads.
And then the staffing costs, I mean, $2,500, obviously it wouldn't cover us, the staff member, I don't think, like.
No,
how does
no.
that- How does that fit into?
Just like additional, like, just to support like and kind of supplement just the additional, expense with having, our contractor on payroll now.
Quinn, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess my question is kind of just around the virtue of this sponsorship and just kind of the return that the city sees from this. And if it's really as much as, you know, like to put it to a dollar amount, like $2,500 versus or for this kind of general year-round sponsorship as opposed to $2,500 for an individual event. I'm just curious, kind of. At, I didn't catch her name, the woman who's presenting. Sorry,
Yeah, my name's Allie.
Allie. If you could speak to that a little bit. I know there's a little bit mentioned in the document, but I'm curious if you could just say a little bit more about that.
Totally. So for instance, the spring sip and stroll, that is intended to bring in 300 to 350 different people who will be spending like on May 1st. They will be like in the different stores, restaurants, and businesses, which is a pretty big revenue generating event for the different like stores and businesses involved. And then obviously just like with the tax dollars that come in, that would support the city. So there would be a return on that. And then as well for the fall sip and stroll, there is same about 300 to 350 people that come in on that day who are being customers, you know, like throughout the city of Middleton for an entire evening. And then we also have the shop and stroll, which is a 4-day event during the summer, 3 to 4 day event during the summer that is focusing on it's like shops and also like food and beverage will also have, the restaurants will have different deals and stuff as well. So that brings in a lot of people. And then we're also using Stonehorse Green, we did last year. And we had programming there for families to come in and enjoy. So there was a lot of families that came into downtown Middleton for that weekend. And then also Spooky Stroll. That's one of the best nights, honestly, for restaurants in the downtown Middleton business like area where we support. Because of all the families that have come in with their kids and they see a huge lift in their numbers on that night. And then also, with the holiday market, I mean, this is something we're in the beginning stages of. I've worked pretty hard on it this year. And our goal is to really scale this event. And I've been working a lot actually with the city of Middleton and other like in tourism as well on bringing an event, a holiday market into town. This year, I think we'll start smaller, but still with the goal of bringing thousands of people in on Small Business Saturday that weekend. And then scale it in the future. And we're hoping to have an event next year that brings in between like 20 and 40,000 people into downtown Middleton.
Where do you envision this market? Is it outside?
It was gonna be initially, and we've kind of had to like shift our plans right now, and this has like been approved like with the I met with Abby and Brian and gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. He handles like street closures.
Brad? Was it Brad Hopwood?
Sean?
Sean.
Stosky?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we were talking about closing Hubbard down from just on the other side of where the library parking lot starts, like just right there, all the way down through Stonehorse Green. And then also between Parmenter and Elmwood up into where Middleton Center's parking garage would exit.
Gotcha.
So it'd have a pretty large footprint.
Wow. And DMBA is doing all of that planning, doing all that?
So DMBA was looking to hire an event planner, and we still are, but it's also pending approvals for different grants with like Travel Wisconsin and tourism. So that's where we're at.
Wow.
Allie, if
Partnerships.
Corey,
could I ask one follow-up?
go ahead.
Allie, if you could speak to, you mentioned some numbers early on that was helpful. Thank you. Over the years for these events, have you seen an increase in participation? Especially seeing as, coming out of COVID, it's been 5 years now, but just curious about the numbers trends there.
Yep. So initially, I'm pretty sure, and I own Little Pop Color Shop, so I've only been in the downtown Middleton business area for since 2021, so 3 years, and I don't know, I guess the historic numbers of the wine walks, but I think I have a pretty good idea. I think the tickets sold were between 200 and 250 originally. And then within the last couple years, we lifted it up to 300. And then we did 325 and we can go up to 350. And we've sold out every year. They're fun.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, Corey, thank you for reminding me.
Oh, no, so, this is just like a little bit of a level setting comment. That's also a little bit of a question. When I joined CDA, I felt like we were almost exclusively like a grant making organization that was doing a ton to invest in like solidifying and cementing downtown businesses. And that, I just pulled up the Wisconsin CDA statute, and I think that all kind of falls under the urban renewal programs and projects part of the CDA statutory mandate. And I think that was a huge focus and continued during COVID when nobody wanted the businesses to go away. And so I think it it's not that these goals are unimportant or that they shouldn't be part of our efforts, but I think, Ally, what you might be hearing now is a little bit of like a shifting focus of the CDA a little bit as we look to work with workforce housing. And so you're probably getting some hard questions because a lot of us are kind of re-educating ourselves about the history of this. And maybe some people who've joined the committee more recently are just wrapping our heads around the varied goals that we're tasked with under the statute. And just to like put my thoughts out about this in particular, we always have competing demands, and I think we often come to people who have, are running great events or who are doing good things like GMBA, and we often ask them, we often wind up trimming the budget a little bit over what they asked, and we often ask for budget detail, which I don't, ideally, I think we would see budget detail and then we ask for a brief report afterward of how the money was used. Yeah, and so now we don't know allocation, but we do know basically what it's going to be used for. So when discussion is done, I would be ready to put forward a motion on this if nobody else has a thought. Thank you.
I'd just like to piggyback on that.
Dennis? Yeah, sorry, Jen.
Yeah. I think there's still some importance in, not some, but there is still importance in ensuring that we're bringing community to downtown Middleton and keeping our downtown thriving and filled. And we are on the brink of recession. So I think now is the time to be bolstering a little bit our business members so that we can maintain a thriving downtown. So that's kind of where I see the benefit. I think you have a lot of programming here. And obviously, like to Carrie's point about budget detail, we're not seeing then your entire budget of how this is a supplement to, because it seems obvious that there is other monies involved in being used and coming in. And I appreciate that you're seeking funds from other sources too, so that this can be like a match in some ways. So I think there's a lot of bang for buck in this proposal, is my opinion. Thank you.
Ari, were you wanting to take an action?
I would actually say that Jen just had a lot of really good points and said things more succinctly and in a more focused way than I did. So I would defer to the member in the room because I'm thinking right now, I have to say.
And to the point about history about this being a grant making, we do have this allocation. We do have funds available, and I don't know, we've not created, from what I know about the CDA, we have not created parameters on how we make our grants and like deadlines in which to submit by. So it seems to be kind of a first come, first serve scenario. And so, I think if projects come before us and there's funds available and we find them worthy of funding, not to say that there's the potential that other proposals are coming before us that we have an inkling will be coming. They're not before us yet. And so we can't, I feel uncomfortable reserving funds for maybes.
Yeah.
In an absence of a grant making process for fairness.
I think the flip side of that though is that this is a significant chunk of that allocation to already allocate in March, so.
Oh, but to Kari's point, she said that there was discussion about trimming things back a little bit, maybe to reserve.
I add some things.
Sure.
I will do. So I think what you said about the recession, this isn't in this document, but just with, I think a lot of Americans probably feel this way, and probably a lot of the community members, but I know definitely a lot of the business owners are concerned, especially with the tariffs. And at the end of the day, they're small business owners. And that is the whole goal of Downtown Middleton Business Association, is to lift these business owners up and to also make them make a really engaging community in downtown Middleton that people want to come and experience and enjoy. And I just think if we can support the businesses throughout year-long initiatives, where there's going to be ebbs and flows this year. And if we can create energy in downtown Middleton that just brings just a lot of enjoyment to the community, but then also can support the small business owners who also are members of the community. I think, I just think it's a really good way to allocate the money to support downtown Middleton and have it would impact hundreds of people, businesses and community members.
Thank you. Quinn?
If there isn't any further discussion, I would make the motion to approve the request for $2,500 for DMBA.
Schaefer will second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I just have one. I don't mean to be black cloud on the parade at all, but I'm just wondering if kind of designating 25 or 22,000, excuse me, to each event will help us stretch it a little farther to more events. I don't mean to change any motion, but Kari, go ahead.
If we're at the point of, well, we don't have a second yet. I don't know if we want to wait for,
A second, we have a second.
oh, we did have a second. I'm sorry, Alder Schaefer. My
Yeah,
brain,
right.
my brain. It's a really interesting point about nothing else is before us and we don't have a grant making process. We had talked about developing a more formal grant making process several years ago, and then kind of COVID hit and that didn't happen. And maybe this is a sign that it's time and we need to have, but it is also true that there are other organizations that have relied on our sort of knowing that things are going to be coming along. Although it's a totally valid point. Like, for example, the tree lighting, when we get to the end of the year, if CDA is out of money or to light the green, we've spent all our money and now we can't light the green because they didn't come to us before anybody else did. That would be a little awkward. I also in my mind was thinking, we're just talking about $500 here, but it's a really small budget. And so I would be really supportive of an amendment to go to the $2,000. And then it sounds like
Sorry,
DMBA is thinking about, I'm just thinking about a different, yeah, go ahead.
Interrupt. If you want to do an alternate motion, I think.
I would, so yeah, tell me the thing to do and I think I would put that
Motion.
forward.
Substitute motion if you want.
I would offer a substitute motion to fund DMBA for the amount of $2,000 and for everything else that's in their proposal.
I'll second. Any discussion on this?
Yes, I would like to hear from Ally how that affects,
Yeah.
does that mean you can't do?
Is that a deal breaker?
It's not a deal breaker. I mean, to be honest, we're just happy to have a sponsorship. It's a lot of work to get sponsorships, and we do have a sponsorship packet that we've been working on to reach out to other organizations and businesses. So I appreciate that. And no, I think it's okay.
That's a good question. Anybody else have any more comment on this? All right, if there's no more discussion, all in favor of a $2,000 event sponsorship for the Downtown Middleton Business Association for 2025, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Do we need to go to the original motion and turn that one down, or how does
I
that work?
don't think so. I think it,
I'm not sure, but since
think a
this
substi-
substitute motion was approved,
It replaces.
it
I think
kind
it
of,
replaces it.
There's nothing, it wasn't like a multi-step motion where that was just replacing one thing. You kind of just replaced the whole thing. So, yeah.
moving on to the request for event sponsorship for $2,000 for Art Walk Middleton. I don't see anybody else here from Art Walk. I guess that's up to me then.
I think it's up to you.
I am on the art committee, Public Arts Committee, and this is a yearly event. I believe this is going to be our 5th year. It's held this year on May 17th on Terrace Avenue in front of Capitol Brewery, and it has become a bigger and bigger event each year. This year we are capping the number of artists to 65 booths. We close the street, we have live music, and I believe the art walk goes from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then in order to keep people downtown and have them go to the restaurants, we are also sponsoring a party at the Stonehorse Green that we call Bubbles and Beats. It's very simple because the art committee will be setting up at 5 a.m. We'll be working all day, and then we're gassed, and then we're going to have this party until 7. But basically, we get giant gallons of bubble soap, and we let the kids do all kinds of cool bubble things, and then the families can sit down with their dinner at Stonehorse, let the kids get all their wiggles out with some bubbles. There'll be music playing, and this money helps us advertise, and it helps us take care of the artists with water and lunch. We used to buy lunch for everybody who would take their restaurant orders, and it's gotten a little cumbersome. So this year we're doing like vouchers for food for the artists, but we still buy them lunch. And so this money helps with organizing all of that and advertising, and this is the same amount of money that we have requested in the past, I believe. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So along the similar lines of questioning
Yeah,
from
right.
the previous proposal, what is the attendance like, and how has that grown over the years? Yeah, what is the reach? So
Yeah, the attendance has, oh my gosh, let me see if I can find how many people we thought were there last year. It's been very hard because people go in and out all day long. And we were actually gonna do drones this year, but I don't know if that's actually gonna happen. I don't know why I'm saying that. I don't know if that's actually a thing we're gonna do. But, oh, I know what we were gonna do, counters, the little hand
Oh,
counters like at the movies. I'm looking at the recap from last time. And I don't have a number. But the first year we had it, we had an artist in every store in the downtown, and it was, I don't know how many artists, it was very limited. So for us to be like capping it at 65, it's really grown. I think last year we had close to 50. And the reputation of the art walk is getting out there. And this is sort of kicking off the whole art fair season for artists. It is a 1-day event versus a lot of them that are 2-day. And so it's attractive to the local artists, but we are not limiting it to anyone from just around here. So we tried to do that at first. We tried to make it just be kind of local Wisconsin artists. Now we're opening it up. So I'm afraid I don't really have an answer to your question,
But it's grown.
but it's grown and we're gonna try and get some sort of account this year. We are almost to the point where we have to find a professional planner, an event planner. And if that is an indication of the growth, that's where we're getting.
It was without numbers, but it was well attended last year and.
Yeah. Yeah, you were
very
one of our
vibrant.
volunteers.
Yeah. Did bring a lot of traffic downtown. Not vehicles, but people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were actually even gonna hire staff from the Parks Committee this year because we needed more people. Anybody else think of something that I can help bring the picture to life?
I was just gonna say, I've attended, the art walk, I've attended, sip and stroll, and like, I just see these all as really great community events. Like, it's just always exciting to have something happening in downtown Middleton that brings people out, and I love seeing everybody from the community. It's like in spring, it's always everyone comes out of hibernation, and you like see everybody again, and it's
Yeah.
just like a great like community thing to not only, for those attendees, but also like, bringing in artists or and small businesses. So I see that in the same vein. Very supportive of that.
And in that vein, Ally brought up the fact that we're most likely gonna be seeing a recession. I truly believe when things get tough, art is the thing we still have accessible to us. And it's gonna help. Wow, I'm getting emotional. It might be the thing we need to get us through this summer. So
Where else does
where else does funding come from? So the artists have to pay a little fee to enter. And that's about it. We have a budget. The art committee has a budget, so we have some that we use and the entry fees. And then we always have a silent auction. Any artist who wants to will put forward a piece of their art, and any money that is used to purchase that silent auction piece, the artists have graciously donated that amount of money that will go to the youth art program here. So keeping younger artists coming along.
I wonder about the aspect of buying lunch for the artists. Like, on one hand, it's kind of like, do we need to do that? Do we need to put money toward that?
After a
But-
while, we probably won't be able to. But right now, it's helping us. Like, the artists can't believe how well organized this thing is. And they're like, oh my gosh, and you're giving us lunch. So it's helped us incentivize people. Some artists don't want to come for just a one-day event, but we don't have the money to pay for overnight security for a 2-day event. So I see you, John. I'll be just a sec.
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know where I was going with that, but I think it does help that giving them lunch just kind of helps us build a reputation of being a really well-run event. And it isn't like,
I mean, I like the idea of if it's vouchers for local restaurants, I like that kind of cycles back. That's nice. I was just curious.
yeah. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just a couple things. I think, I'm a musical artist, not a visual artist, but I think arts is important, and even more important is
Oh, we have music all day there.
yeah, but this is fine. I think this is great. I think that in terms of how many people come to this event and whether the event gets bigger, I guess a better question to me is how many people come back to Middleton after going to an event like that, want to continue to use the restaurants and the things. Third, I agree with Carrie. I think we should look at trying to do a little more formalized way of how we do these grants, give people a deadline so everybody's on a fair playing field, but we're not there today. And I think this is important and we should move ahead. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the sponsorship for $2,000 to Arts Walk of Middleton.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Carrie. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor of the $2,000 sponsorship for the Art Walk Middleton 2025, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I thank you all very much for coming in on such a beautiful night, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And we're off to another one.
Yes.